St. Vincent, and again, has taken strides thanks to the Football Federation for putting the Premier League games and the Club Championships games on Facebook. They're available on Facebook at the SVGFF Facebook page. Season starts next Friday. Season, again, starts next Friday. The 2020-21 season starts next Friday.
The first game is Leyu, the First Division champions, newbies in the competition. They'll be taking on Avenues. And the second game will be Hope International versus System 3.
Marquee match.
Top clubs in St. Vincent.
Okay, so there's a lot of comings and goings in the SVGPL, in the Premier League in St. Vincent. A lot of players transferred. Again, we talked about the number of clubs in the Premier League was being reduced from, is it 12 to 10 this year, or was it 14 to 10?
12 to 10. So there will be 10 clubs in the Premier League for this season.
And as what happens all over the world, whenever there's either demotion or contraction, a lot of players from those top teams are not going to be able to play in the Premier League. So they're finding new places on different teams. So it's making it an exciting opportunity. And Debson will talk about that. Some top players, top scorers from last year have new jerseys on. Zidane from Greg's was demoted relegated to the first division. So one of their top scorers is now on a different team. Again, in this break, the guys were at home. There's a lot going on in St. Vincent. Election time went on. The old regime is back in control in St. Vincent. Are we then saying, Debson, that it's Hope, the same old for 2020-21? Hope wins the title again?
I think Hope will definitely start favorites for this new season. But football is played on the day, so we'll see how it goes.
Okay, if you had to pick a top 5, let's just get right into it. What's your list, 1 through 5?
My picks for this season: Hope International 1, Jabel FC 2, System 3, third spot, Predators 4, and I'm gonna go Leyu 5.
Wow there. And Leyu is a team that they won the first division, moved up to Premier. Have you watched them, and what gives you hope that Leyu will sort of come out of the gates ready to compete at this level?
We played against them, my team, Sparta Football Club. We played against them in the first division last year. So I've seen them play firsthand. Also, I know they have some good support staff. People like Wade Jackson, Chester Morgan, who are around them in the background making decisions and getting them ready for the new season. And they have a lot of young players who are on the up. So I expect them to be a little stronger, a little faster, a little taller. So that would help them for this year. Also, they have made 1 or 2 transfers that should help them in some key areas.
Okay, and we'll get into the transfers because there's a lot of movement. Again, with teams getting relegated, the league being contracted from 12 teams to 10, that's a lot of players, at least on 2 teams, who are not going to be seen in the first division, so they're probably finding homes with Premier League teams. So we'll get into that. Now, again, last year was the first year, I believe, the Premier League games were broadcasted on Facebook. When the weather cooperated, the feed was fantastic. The announcers were great. Who are the 2 announcers, by? What are their names? I think they did a fantastic job.
I know Roxelle John was on consistently. They also had a few others interchanging.
And as far as you know, those guys will be back?
Yeah, I think the plan is to have the same feed, the same presenters, commentators, and probably add a little bit of extras to it. So expecting better things for the season.
All the games were at our stadium in Kingstown, Victoria Park, partly because they had to create a bubble, if you would. In a regular year, the games would be all over, from Georgetown, for people who don't know, which is in a rural part of the country, all the way to Chateau Belair, basically on the other side of the island. So out of necessity, I think a wonderful thing happened. And it looks like they've adjusted the schedule. You said about 70 to 90% of the games will be at Victoria Park.
The COVID limitations have been lifted somewhat. However, there's still the need for precaution, and the change from previous years where maybe 50 to 60% of games might have been at Victoria Park and a lot of more games in the rural fields. But this year, a very high percentage of games in the Premier League will be at Victoria Park. Probably 80-90% of the games will be at Victoria Park.
Well, that's good for us. More analysis for us. I mean, we only got, to watch or analyze 5 weeks of the season last year. And hopefully we get all 21, 22 games in this year. And I'm really looking forward to it. You mentioned that you're picking Hope to finish first. Again, for 2020-21, you said Jabel second?
System
3
System
third?
3, Predators, then
Predators. And who else?
Leyu, number 5.
Now, remind us, how did it finish last year? It was Hope. There was some controversy for the second and third place, but it was a System 3 or Predators that ended up finished second? Predators?
System 3.
System 3 second, Predators third, Jabel fourth.
Jabel 4th.
And
Pastures 5th.
Pastures 5th. For this year, again, with the contraction of the league from 12 teams to 10, a lot of players are making moves. And give us an idea of some of the players that we saw last year, some of the major names or major contributors to some teams, but are now in new uniforms and new places this year.
I'll start with Hope International, the defending champions. They maintained the majority of their squad. Most players are back, and they have got some new additions. Notably, Nazir McBonnet. For the last couple of seasons, he has been in Antigua and other semi-professional or professional leagues. But now he's home. He's going to be playing for Hope International, so that's a major boost there for Hope International. Also, they have acquired.
What position is he?
He can play on either wing. He can also play in the midfield, so it's going to be adding some versatility. He has the qualities of being a very good passer with both feet and also very fit. They also acquired Tevin Thompson, who was at Awesome FC last season, running their midfield.
Awesome got relegated?
Awesome is still in the Premier League, so they have lost one of their main players there.
So before we go on, how does that work? Because nobody's, as far as I know, nobody's getting paid. We're not a professional league. So are there contracts? I'm assuming not. So every year, is there this? Again, this is the first year I'm paying attention to it. But is this something that's regular? Every year there is this kind of movement?
Yeah, there's pretty fluid movements among the clubs. It's basically, if a player comes to you and wants to leave, they're basically free to leave. There's no real contractual binding agreement.
So is that something that's been in the work? Again, you are also part of the FF in some capacities. Have you heard of talk about making sort of contracts and making something a little bit more binding? I know it's tough because there's not a financial tie to anybody. Nobody's getting paid to do this. But with all this movement, I mean, it seems every year, you're not building stability. The teams that do well over the past couple of years, like Hope, like you said, are teams that are still intact for the most part.
Yeah, it's definitely an issue for clubs, that quick changeover and trying to rebuild your squad, getting players to know each other every season. So that's definitely a problem. In terms of steps to adjust this situation, for this season, clubs are now being asked to register their players on FIFA Connect. So it'll be a little bit more regularized rather than the pen and paper or just sending your authority. You would actually be officially linked to your club and recognized by FIFA. In terms of payments for transfers and contracts, I don't think that will come in as yet, but it's a move towards that. It's step number one. So hopefully we can get to that level where we are maybe at a semi-professional level. Players are being paid in some format, and there's more incentives to stay at their clubs.
Now, as far as you know, and I mean, I'm sure it's the same in any professional league or semi-professional league, players are incentivized with some sort of compensation if they do well or they exceed whatever the expectations are. Although we don't pay in St. Vincent. As far as you know, without naming names, are there people that are getting paid? My assumption would be yes.
I think players are definitely being paid. I pay my players.
Okay.
I have a little arrangements where they'll be paid based on performance and appearances. A small match fee.
So what's the match fee for you guys in the first division?
On average, players would get at least 20. With performance bonuses, you can get a higher level than that.
Okay, so 20 EC is about $8 US, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay. So
roughly
$8 US. Again, anybody who's looking to sponsor a team in St. Vincent, Coach Debson's Sparta FC, it doesn't cost a whole lot. It doesn't cost a whole lot for a game, for a series of games. These are the kinds of things that I think we need to professionalize what we do down there and incentivize people. I mean, we're athletes, but, you put a little carrot just beyond our reach. As competitors, we're going to reach for it. And money helps. We're not the richest country in the world, and that $8 or $10 or $20 goes a long way. That definitely goes a long way. So who else in terms of player movement? This McDermott for Hope. What other big names are we going to notice as viewers over the next couple of months?
Okay, for System 3, they have 2 key defenders back. They have Javin Sutherland. They have Kevin Francis. So that should help their defense.
Where were those guys? You said back. Where were they?
They were in Antigua, I think, last time playing semi-professionally.
And those are center backs?
Yeah, center backs. Kevin Francis, he can also play right back.
So is Johnny Ack in trouble? Is our man Captain Johnny Ack in trouble?
I think he'll be happy to have the support. So he might be able to play in his more preferred position
at right back, make those long switches across the field, which he's good at. Who else?
Yeah, just finishing off System 3, they also have Azino Solomon, who was also in the Antigua League. He's a wing player. He should help to give Jante James and some support as well.
So you're saying in Antigua, that the reason they're back for November, December, January is why? The Antigua League starts in the spring, or why are they able to do this now?
Okay, the Antigua League generally would have started by now. However, because of the Corona situation, the COVID-19 situation, I think it's on delay a bit. Some of the leagues haven't restarted. It might not be at the same level. So some of the players are preferring to stay here until things clear up a bit.
So is there a chance that these players could leave in the middle of the season when those leagues resume?
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility that these players might leave. If, for example, Antigua opens up in January or whatever the case might be, that a few of these players might be out and heading for different opportunities.
What team do you think that'll hurt the most if that happens?
I think System 3. Yeah, System 3.
System 3 had a lot of players in foreign playing.
Yeah, might have a lot of players that might be heading back out. I think Hope has done a great job of boosting their squad to try and compensate if necessary, if that event occurs. So maybe System 3 might be most impacted.
Was System 3 at 100% last year? So we're saying no, because some of their better players were not available. And do we then expect them to come out of the gate a little more amped up the first couple of months?
Yeah, I think it would help them definitely at the beginning of the season, the returning players. But there are a few other teams with returning players as well. So would it be enough to make them title favorites? I don't think so, but it should help their level of play. And I think that would help the level of play generally across the Premier League, that these players are back.
Okay, so we talked System 3, we talked Hope. What about Jabel? They've added Zidane Sam from Greg's. Greg's got relegated. Greg's was one of the most fun teams to watch in the 5 weeks that I watched them play. They were one of the better teams, I thought, in terms of the way they moved the ball, but there were other issues going on. You said traditionally for the players at Greg's. And, there might have been a lack of, tactical discipline, but it was fun to watch them play. I thought. I mean, one game they beat up on, was it Pastures?
Yeah,
5-0?
Pastures, 5-0, yeah.
And they had one of the top 5 scorers in the league, so they scored goals. And as we recognize all over the league, the issue for them was defense, goalkeeping at times. Although their goalkeeper is a monster. He looked like he's like 6'4", 300 pounds and can move. If he gets
and he's
in
at
shape.
Jabel now.
What? So talk about that. So let's go to Jabel now. Let's go to Jabel. Who did they pick up? Who else besides that monster goalkeeper? And what's the gentleman's name?
Sachin James.
What are we talking about? Anybody gets a chance to look at this guy. He's got to at least be 6'3", 6'4", at least 250 pounds, maybe?
He's probably a bit more than 6'4". He's probably 6'6", but yeah.
And a young guy, too.
Yeah, he's young.
So, again, anybody out there in the U.S. college system, maybe not D1, who's looking for a keeper, I'd recommend taking a look at this player. What's his name again?
Sachin James.
For Jabel. So who else did Jabel pick up? Besides Sam and this goalkeeper from Greg's.
I think those are the two notable signings. They probably have had a couple other players coming up from their youth system and a few other minor transfers, but those might be two of the more impactful players.
So no defensive additions, no center backs, no outside back. Well, no stay backs and no kickbacks. I refuse to call them center backs or outside backs until I see better. No kickbacks or no stay backs for them.
Not to my knowledge, no. Just the keeping is the difference.
And the Joseph brothers are still there?
Yeah, the Joseph brothers are still there, and I expect them to be even better this year. That's the thing with Jabel. They have quite a number of young players, and hopefully they will be even at a higher level this year.
What about Predators?
Predators, I don't think they have made much changes in the transfer market. However, what I do know about Predators is that they work a lot in terms of coaching, reviewing their game. They have one of the better coaches in Simonson, in my opinion, Bishan Williams.
What's the gentleman's name?
Bishan Williams.
Okay.
Yeah, so I know he will be doing a lot of work to get his team prepared. So I expect them to be even sharper this season.
Okay, so those are the top 4. You also mentioned Leyu coming from the first division. You saw them, played against them. You mentioned off air the addition of, I think, one of the more exciting players, in St. Vincent. I don't know what happened to him. I was asking what happened to him last year. I'm assuming injury. And that's Travis Frazier from Barrouallie. Travis Frazier is a player from my hometown in Barrouallie. I've known him watched him since he was 8, 9 years old. Going down there doing my summer camps every year. And I've watched this kid develop from 8, 9, perhaps didn't have the technique as everybody else, but he had that want-to factor that you can't coach. He just, whenever he defended, whenever it was a 50-50 ball, there was a good chance he was going to get it because he wanted it more. And you watched him get technically better and better. When he was 8, 9, there were like 5 or 6 players that were technically better than him. You watched him progress to the point where I'm watching St. Vincent play the CONCACAF U20s in Florida, 2 years ago. And the local professional team, the assistant coach is a friend of mine, and he was talking about Travis Frazier. And St. Vincent, the U20 team, did not have a particularly good showing at the CONCACAF Championships. When Travis stood out, one, he was the reigning 100-meter champion, high school 100-meter champions in Vincent, so the speed was off the charts. The ability to take on people was off the charts, but unfortunately, he got hurt. I mean, we were talking to him about coming up here for preseason. I think the U20s was in the fall, right around this time, two years ago, I believe, 2 or 3 years ago. And he got hurt in Florida, took some time off to mend, or else there was a professional team that was wanting to take a chance on him, to invite him to preseason right here in Raleigh so that he can perform. And for me, he's one of the most dangerous players in St. Vincent. It'll be interesting to see what he looks like. Him, I'm looking forward to seeing. And I'm also looking forward to see a kid called Shamal Reed, Hayo, and also another player from Barrouallie who at the U14, U15 level, you know, it would have been 5 years ago now. I thought he was college ready. Just tall, lanky. You know, there are players who, when they run, it looks effortless to them. You know, Chad is fast, but you can see him doing the work to run. You watch Hayo, at least in my opinion, he just glides. He just glides and he's going by people. I haven't seen him in about 4 or 5 years. He's on the LAU team, so I'm interested to see what kind of damage was he doing in first division, because, again, I haven't seen him in 4 or 5 years.
He had a good season last year. He was the top striker for LAU.
As a 9, or is he on the sides, a 7 or 11? Or
he was playing more on the wing, but maybe with the addition of Travis Fraser, they probably might play Travis on the wing and play him more centrally.
So you didn't get to see Travis last year. Was he hurt?
Yes, he was. And hopefully he'll be back 100% and be at the same level of fitness and speed that he was before. If he is, then that would be a major boost for LAU. He might be able to push them even a couple steps forward up the ladder.
Quite honestly, he's one of the more dangerous players that I saw in St. Vincent, if he's healthy. Him, is it Terrence Joseph, obviously Jonte James scoring, D'Souza scoring for Jabel. It'd be interesting for System 3 because I believe one of my favorite players, Duran Doppel, will be going to school in January, so he won't be around too much. And so who takes over in the midfield for System 3? There's a lot up in the air because, again, if they have those players who were in Antigua and Antigua starts up, that'd be interesting to keep an eye on. What about the teams that are out of the top 5? Who else? Who are those other teams?
We'll start with the other promoted team, Largo Heights. Largo Heights is a very experienced team. I know they have made a couple of signings to add some youth and some depth in their squad. They're quite capable of making some upsets through the season, but I don't think they'll be able to perform consistently enough to make the top 5. Matter of fact, they might be in that relegation battle.
You played LAU and also Largo Heights last year. What can we look forward to? What was the thing that worried you as a coach? Obviously, they made it up, so they did something right. What worried you? What is their thing?
I think the advantages for Largo Heights is they have players who have played together for a very long time and they know exactly what they are looking to achieve. They also quite good on set pieces and they look to release the ball as quickly as possible.
So do they have height? They have a lot of height?
Yeah, they have some height. So scoring on corner kicks and stuff like that would be part of their mode of attack. In terms of LAU, with the speed up top, there's, as you mentioned, Travis Fraser and Shamal Reed. There's also Orion Velox, who is part of my national under-17 setup. Yeah, another talented player. So they have that speed factor on the front line, something that they definitely can take full advantage of. Avenues had a bit of a rough time last season in terms of depth in their squad. I know they have made some transfers. They might be big, impactful players, but they would definitely help the depth of the squad, which was something that caused some problems for them last season. There's also Awesome, where they have lost a few players, but I know they have also made some measures to retool their squad with some new players, some new young players. So hopefully they can have those integrated into the squad and help them for the season.
Federation National Club Championships every weekend, live on the SVGFF Facebook page and YouTube channel. Weekends are for football, and football is here.
Pastures is still there. Thank you, I overlooked Pastures there.
Well, I think that's natural in terms of what they've been doing over the past couple of years. We're talking a team that won the league a couple of years ago. And they had the slowest defenders, to me, the worst defenders, the worst center backs. No disrespect to Hamlet, I'm sorry, dude, but you and the Dread in the back were awful. There was only, who's the gentleman from Barrouallie, the forward up top, who's in the national program? Jabel Cunningham, that was the only thing I saw. Everything else was in shambles, and their record proved that. It's a far cry from what the team was only 2 years ago. What has happened?
All right, I think they have had some issues in terms of the management. There might have been some breakdown in that area, which probably have lessened the confidence of players who prospectively might have wanted to join the club. A few players might have left because of that as well.
They had a link to Barrouallie. I mean, I think we looked on the squad and there might have been 3 or 4 players from Barrouallie. So are you saying that those Barrouallie players that make the decision to go to other teams? Because when Pastures was doing well, it was a pipeline directly into the streets and parks and mountains and beaches of Barrouallie.
Yeah, so they've lost a few players through that avenue. Okay. Probably clubs like the UFC might be more appealing to the Barrouallie players, probably. Hopefully, and I'm putting this into the universe, hopefully the next 2 years, a Barrouallie club will be more appealing, because I am kind of sick of these players, not having the opportunity to compete for a club from the town itself. And hopefully we're going to work to correct that over the next couple of years and put Barrouallie back in a place of prominence because of the players that we produce. You mentioned Lago Heights. You're thinking probably right now preseason candidate for relegation. Who's your other team? This season, they're going to have 3 teams that are going to be relegated from the Premier League.
Give me them. Lago Heights, who else? Come on, be mean here. Be real here.
Awesome. Possibly Pastures.
Wow, how the mighty have fallen.
If they haven't done anything significant in terms of boosting their squad depth and adding a couple impactful players, they will be in a lot of trouble.
It's a point of pride that I am now, again, paying attention to the Premier League, and I'm seeing in Travis Fraser, Jamal Reed, Gibson Francis.
What do you have to do on the field no matter what happens?
The center back for Jabel, I cannot remember the young man's names. These are players that started with Jason Frederick, Damien John, and all the good folks in Barrouallie who started training these kids Saturday morning since they were 8, 9 years old. And now these kids are 19 to 21, 22, ready to make an impact. Gibson is one of those players, and he was with the U20s in Florida as a center midfielder who I think can make a difference. One of the things that we harped on, that we rarely saw out of any team in the Premiership, was a center midfielder, or basically use of the midfield, specifically the center midfield, in any consistent way. Besides System 3, using Geron Doppel maybe a little bit more than usual, and a 10-minute spell, we watched Keon Gordon being used in that 6 role, in that holding midfielder role, where they were looking for him, looking to move a ball around him, and getting some attack or some possession. So again, looking forward to watching Gibson Francis do that for, is it Pastures? For Pastures this year.
Yeah, for Pastures.
again, the season starts November 27th. Coach Debson and I will be there to review. In the meantime, follow the SVGPL Premier League, or what they call the Club Championships, on Facebook. Continue to listen to podcasts on Anchor or Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you want to listen to your podcast. Certainly visit our YouTube page where these videos will be. And we hope to continue seeing you as the season progresses.